It's MLB Draft Day. We've got everything you need to know from an LSU perspective. It's Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thrilled to have you aboard with us here for this bonus content. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts. Thank you for making us your first listen. So the MLB Draft gets underway on Sunday, a 3-day event. Round 1 on Sunday, rounds 2 through 10 on Tuesday, and then the duration of the draft on Monday, and then the duration of the draft on Tuesday. And it moves pretty rapid fire after you get past day one, but they made this into a TV event. So what I want to do today is let you know everything you need to be keeping an eye on over these next 3 days. Not going to be a super long episode, but we hope that this is really informative in what you need to be keeping an eye on from an LSU perspective. So what I'd like to do here is talk first about the high school commitments for LSU, the high school signees. Then we'll delve into the JUCO guys, and then what we know about the current LSU Tigers and what it's looking like for the draft there. So we'll delve into all of that. We're glad to have you aboard with us here. Please, whatever podcast app you're listening to, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever a video goes live. Okay, let's start with the high school prospects that LSU has signed in this class. And I'm just going to run down the list and let you know effectively who I think is signing, who is coming to school, and who are the players we need to keep an eye on, okay? Let's just start at the top with what we absolutely know. And there's two guys that there's just no shot they show up on campus, and that's Connor Griffin and Cam Caminiti. So Connor Griffin is a 6'4", 210-pound outfielder out of Mississippi. He is in everybody's top 15 in this draft. He is going to get north of $5 million. He is not showing up on campus. It's unfortunate. I had one scout tell me that this is the once every couple of decades type player. He is the Bryce Harper type player that comes through the draft out of high school once every 20 years or so. And LSU had him signed, but he's not coming to campus. Cam Caminiti, the lefty, 6'2", 205-pounder, he also is going to sign. He's in everybody's top 15. So those two guys, you're not getting them to campus. It gets more interesting with William Schmidt. The right-handed pitcher out of Catholic High, 6'4", 190, really blew up in his senior year. And there's just been a lot of conversation about William Schmidt because he is a self-described LSU superfan. And being a kid from Baton Rouge who would love to play for LSU, you understand why that's a tough decision. But when you start talking about the money that William Schmidt might get, it's just so hard to pass. So, of course, we have a great FanDuel partnership here. And, FanDuel has William Schmidt's over-under at 23.5. His draft slot, like where he would be picked, is 23.5. Well, if he goes 23rd, that's the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have a $3.67 million slot value. If there's a team that takes William Schmidt in the low 20s like that and offers him north of $3 million, he'd be a fool not to take it. I think he will. And something else worth keeping in mind, William Schmidt is hosting a draft party as well. Now, it's kind of these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, so you can do that. But I don't think that if William Schmidt was planning on staying home and going to LSU, that he'd be hosting a draft party. So some of the feeling that a lot of us had, the hopefulness that we had that maybe William Schmidt would end up a Tiger, that seems to be waning here in the days leading up to the draft. The news does get better for LSU. So Derek Curiel, who's an elite outfielder, 6'2", 175-pounder, he's already said he's not going in the draft. He's told teams, don't pick me. He's coming to LSU. Cade Arambidi is one to watch. He's a catcher out of the Houston area, 6'3", 210. And before this season, Cade Arambidi was a projected first-round pick. And he struggled a bit with the bat in his senior season in high school. And as a result, he's kind of fallen to that third, fourth round range. And that being the case, he's got just a much higher number. So I think he's content on going to school. Now, there could always be a team that jumps up and spends a bunch of money. But as of now, I would say it's an 80-20 chance that Cade Arambidi shows up on campus, and that would be huge at catcher considering LSU has a great need there at the catcher spot. Boston Bateman is someone who, if you read the trade, so to speak, people have wavered on Bateman. So Bateman's a 6'8", 240-pound left-handed pitcher. And because it looked like he may fall out of round one, there was a lot of people who thought maybe Boston Bateman would show up on campus. But as I understand it, talking to people late this week, he's very likely a late second-round pick and is someone who's going to sign. So while there's hopefulness that maybe you get lucky and a guy like Boston Bateman ends up at LSU, it's not looking good. And that's important because both Cam Caminiti and Boston Bateman are left-handed pitchers. And as we've talked about, LSU kind of void of lefties for the 2025 season. We'll get to more of that here in a second, though. Cale Fountain is a third baseman, big kid, 6'5", 229. Cale Fountain about 80% likely to show up on campus. So that would be another guy that works into the rotation there in the mix, vying for those infield slots. And that's sort of a familiar theme here. So Kason Evans is a shortstop who also is likely to show up on campus. Are expecting that to happen. David Hogg, he's a projected third, fourth round guy, another shortstop, a high school shortstop, projected round 3 or 4, but 60-40 he shows up on campus. That's one to watch. You'll probably sweat out a little bit, but you're expecting to get Cale Fountain, who's a third baseman. You're expecting to get Kason Evans, a shortstop. David Hogg, a little more up in the air. And the other infielder that we really have to keep an eye on is Michael Ryan. So Michael Ryan out of Rummel. This is a guy who is another one of those diehard LSU lifers, the program guys you'd love to have, who also happens to be a spectacular athlete, 6 foot, 185-pounder. He could play as a freshman. He could start at shortstop as a freshman. He is one of those guys that if Michael Ryan shows up on campus, don't be surprised if he's a Stephen Milam type that ends up winning a job somewhere on the infield as a freshman. He could play second, third, or short. And I'm told about 80% probability that Michael Ryan ends up on campus. The rest of the high school guys, Ryan Costello is a first baseman. He'll show up on campus, likely a redshirt candidate. Maverick Rizzi was a late add to this class. He's a righty, 6'9", 225. Go check out his footage if you just search Twitter or anywhere on YouTube. Again, Maverick Rizzi is his name, R-I-Z-Y, 6'9", 225 from the right side. He's a massive guy. It's interesting to watch the footage just because of that. But Rizzi is likely to end up on LSU's campus. Josh Pearson's younger brother, he's an outfielder from West Monroe. He is expected to end up on campus as well. And same for Austin McCormick, a lefty, 6 foot, 170-pounder, is also expected to end up on LSU's campus and not in the draft. One other player is Stunner Gonzalez, a righty, 6'7", 200-pounder, who also is expected to show up on campus. So just kind of to recap with the high school guys, Connor Griffin, Cam Caminiti, William Schmidt, all likely gone. Derek Curiel, I said he's coming to campus. Cade Arambidi, you're really hopeful there. Same with Cale Fountain and David Hogg and Michael Ryan. Boston Bateman likely to sign. The guys you really feel confident will end up outside of Curiel. Kason Evans, the shortstop. Ryan Costello, a first baseman. Maverick Rizzi, a right-handed pitcher. John Pearson, an outfielder. And Austin McCormick, the left-handed pitcher. So those are the players out of this high school signing class that LSU, where we kind of stand, thinking where LSU will be on this the Sunday of the round 1 of the MLB draft. Well, there's JUCO players, and of course, there's the current Tigers as well. So what should we be keeping an eye on? We'll talk about that as we continue here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers and roof racks or exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride, every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Okay, so we've gone through all of the high school prospects for LSU. Let's run through the JUCO guys worth keeping an eye on and the current Tigers, and this will be a little bit of a quicker list. So there's 3 players really from the JUCO ranks that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Trevor Schmidt is one. Trevor Schmidt's interesting. He's a guy that signed with Jay Johnson at Arizona, but never played for Jay Johnson. So signed with Arizona, and then Jay Johnson took the LSU job. Schmidt spent 1 season at Arizona, then went to Fullerton College. This is not Cal State Fullerton. This is Fullerton College, a junior college. He's a first base, power-hitting first baseman. One thing worth keeping an eye on, while it's very likely Trevor Schmidt ends up on LSU's campus, his uncle is the Colorado Rockies general manager, and there's some kind of scuttle around baseball circles that maybe the Rockies take a flyer on Schmidt over sign. So we'll keep an eye there. But Trevor Schmidt, I think we're expecting to end up on campus. And think about all the first base DHs that LSU has, especially with what happens potentially with Bear Jones. I mean, you've gone and signed 3 first base DH players here in this portal cycle. There's the possibility of Bear Jones and then Trevor Schmidt as well. Really put 5 guys like that. Jay Johnson needed power in this offense, and he certainly added a lot of them. Connor Ware is a left-handed pitcher out of Pearl River. And there's a lot of conversation about Connor Ware, but my understanding is that Connor Ware was a guy before this season that was a projected second-round pick, but had injuries this year and has fallen down in the draft. And as a result, LSU is pretty confident that he's going to end up on campus. It's one worth watching. And keep in mind, as we talk about left-handed pitchers, you've got Cade Anderson returning. You've got DJ Primo. You've got the names that I just mentioned that you're expecting to show up on campus. And it's really Austin McCormick, who's the one freshman, and then Connor Ware, the JUCO signee. So you'd love to go get another lefty out of the portal, but you're really, really needing Connor Ware to show up on LSU's campus. But that's one that you're going to have to sweat out. And another you're going to have to sweat out is Blaze Priester. So Blaze Priester, you know that story. We've talked about it plenty. He's from Live Oak, a super talented catcher, elite defensive catcher with a ton of pop in the bat. As a matter of fact, he's playing for Team USA right now in Holland. And on Friday, I believe he was batting the cleanup spot for Team USA over in an international series. So you've got a guy there that is a really good defensive catcher that can hit for average, for power, a great all-around catcher. I'm told the Rangers have been pushing for Blaze Priester of late, but that's one you're going to sweat, and especially because of all of the just the shortage behind the plate that LSU has. So remember, when you obviously Hayden Travinsky and Alex Milazzo are out of eligibility, and you've also lost Brady Neal to Alabama in the transfer portal, so you don't have a catcher. Blaze Priester would presumably be your day one starter. If you get Cade Arambidi from the high school ranks, that's 2. Tigers need another catcher out of the portal. But if somehow you miss on Blaze Priester here, if he ends up signing a pro contract, that would be devastating for LSU in 2025. They would be absolutely desperate for a catcher in the portal. They'd have to go get one. So those are the 3 JUCO players worth watching. Trevor Schmidt, Connor Ware, Blaze Priester, expecting all of them to show up on campus. But again, the MLB draft is just a funny wackadoo process where you never actually know what's going to happen because you never know what a team is planning. They could always sign over slot. They could take a flyer on a guy who ends up signing. So we'll play it all out. And then, of course, how many LSU Tigers get drafted? We know Tommy White is the guy we're going to keep an eye on Sunday in round 1, potential late round 1 guy. Gage Jump and Luke Holman both expected to go in round 2. The 2 players that we're keeping an eye on, obviously, are Griffin Herring and Bear Jones. Guys like Fidel Ulloa and Justin Lohr, we're expecting them to get picked. At the end of the draft, we'll keep an eye on what happens with Michael Braswell on day 3. Is he an end of the draft selection? Does he sign a contract, begin his pro career? Does he come back to LSU as a starting shortstop? But really, the 2 guys that LSU is keeping an eye on the most are Griffin Herring and Bear Jones. So Herring, the latest information I have is he is likely to be a 4th-round draft pick, and the feeling is that Griffin Herring would get somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to $600K and sign. He has pitched in the Cape this summer. He has started in the Cape this summer, and he's thrown his changeup, which means he's not just fastball slider. He's shown his changeup. The feeling is that there's enough big league scouts that have seen him throw it and that are going to be confident to pick him and that he would sign. So would love to see Griffin Herring back, another left-handed arm, another rotation piece potentially. Worst case scenario, really good left-handed reliever. But it really feels like with all the conversations of late, the trend thinking here is that Griffin Herring does in fact get picked and sign. The opposite is true though for Bear Jones, and this could be a really big boost for LSU offensively. Especially after Bear Jones went to the MLB scouting combine out in Arizona, the feeling was with the show he put on that he was gone. Well, he's still a projected 4th or 5th round pick, but what you'll likely see, and this is the thing worth keeping an eye on, is do teams with multiple picks manipulate money to be able to oversign someone like Bear Jones? So even if he goes in round 4 or 5, do you see him get $750,000, $800K, something like that? If that's the case, I think Bear Jones signs. But the other part of that is absolutely possible as well. Is he a guy that's staring down an offer of $250,000? And then, maybe you have enough NIL in place and the appeal of coming back to school for another year to try to hit 30 bombs and 300 for another season, and still maintain your leverage and try to win a championship at LSU. It would be a massive, massive boost for Jay Johnson if Bear Jones comes back to LSU for another season, because as we've talked about, you have lost all of your power bats from the 2024 Tigers. And if you're able to return the biggest power bat of the 2024 roster, along with all of the other players you've added here in this portal cycle and the incoming freshman class, it would just be a massive get for LSU if Bear Jones does in fact return. So those are all the guys we're keeping an eye on over the next 3 days of the Major League Baseball draft. And you better believe we're going to be recapping all of it right here on Locked on LSU. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we go live. Please subscribe to the channel as well. And be sure to be here. Hey, look, Monday starts SEC football media days, and LSU takes its turn at the podium first. We will be in Dallas with all of the coverage, so we'll look for you then. For Locked on LSU, your team every day.